An alternative rock icon was beaten up for wearing his mother's dress. He was kicked out of school for inciting a riot. And he wrote a song in the late 70s that is more topical today than ever before. Even though it was released in the 80s, kind of more considered an 80s song. It established his band in America, and he once dedicated this song to Motorhead. The compelling story of a new wave 80s classic is coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you want to be a part of a faithful music community that curates the best of the rock and roll era, make sure to subscribe below right now to get even more content, to become a producer and help us curate this history, help keep it a daily channel. Click on our Patreon link below where we give you more content. So it's time for another edition of our series Breakthrough. This is where we break down the singular song, album, or event that kicked open the door to an artist or band's career and gave them the momentum to rocket to long-term success. Now, the alternative rock icon Robert Smith, Rock and Roll Hall of Famer, wasn't always made up of eyeliner and lipstick, but he's always been a complex individual. I mean, even back when he was an impressionable 5-year-old when he met his friend and future bandmate Lawrence Lowell Tallhurst at a school bus stop on the way to kindergarten. When Robert was 11 years old, he wore his mother's black velvet dress to school on one occasion for no apparent reason and was beaten up by bullies on his way home for this cross-dressing stunt. The Smith-Tallhurst friendship progressed into their teen years when they formed a band with their closest schoolmates while attending Notre Dame Middle School in the Crawley area of West Sussex, England. They called the band Obelisk and had their one and only public performance in 1973 when the lads were just 14 years old. 1973 ended up being one of the most pivotal years in the life of Robert James Smith. In addition to forming his first band, Robert met Mary Poole while the two were students at St. Wilfrid's Comprehensive School in Crawley, England. Robert, of course, smitten by Mary, and he mustered up enough nerve to ask her to be his partner in a drama class project, actually. A romance ensued, and they have been a couple ever since, becoming husband and wife in 1988. Robert's enduring love for Mary has inspired many of his most popular songs, as many of you know, Just Like Heaven and Love Song, which he wrote as a wedding gift for his bride.
You make me feel like I am but again.
Robert once opened up in an interview with Face magazine that Mary, and I quote, has always been the one that has saved me when I have been the most self-destructive. She's always been the one that has caught me when I've been so very close to completely falling apart, end of quote. In addition to being Robert's emotional savior, Mary has also been a source of motivational force for his profession. According to an interview Smith gave to the indie publication Lime Lizard in 1991, it was Mary's lack of confidence in his future as a musician that fueled Robert's drive to make The Cure, originally titled The Easy Cure, a big success. One of the reasons for Mary Poole's skepticism in her future husband's prospects was really because Robert was expelled from St. Wilfrid's School after he was charged with inciting a riot at one of the 3 live gigs with his second band called Malice. The headmaster of the school gave the official reason for Robert's expulsion as being an undesirable influence because his band, Malice, created a disruptive incident. Looking back on his dismissal, Robert always contended that it was personal between him and the headmaster. He said, I hated him and he hated me. That's what he asserted. In late 1976, Robert and his childhood pal, Lowell Tallhurst, reassembled parts from the ill-fated Malice to form The Cure. The original lineup of The Cure was Robert Smith on vocals and rhythm guitar, Michael Mick Dempsey on bass, Lowell Tallhurst on drums, and local guitar hero Pearl Thompson, who later legally changed the first name to Pearl in 2011. Robert Smith has been the only constant member of The Cure since its inception in 1976. The Cure's first record deal was inked in 1977 with the German disco label Hansa, most known as being the label for the popular Euro-Caribbean vocal group Boney M. The deal with Hansa ended with vitriol when The Cure presented the president of the label with new material only to be told by the mortified boss, not even people in prison would like these songs. That's a vote of confidence. Now, the rejected demo actually found its way to Polydor A&R executive Chris Perry, who signed The Cure to Fiction Records, a division of Polydor Records, in '78. The Cure released their debut single, Killing an Arab, in December of 1978. Killing an Arab garnered both acclaim but also controversy.
I'm a stranger, killing an Arab.
Whether you know the song or not, you can understand why the single's disturbing title led to charges of racism. But you got to be careful not to judge a song's meaning by its title, as we always say. Killing an Arab is actually based on French existentialist Albert Camus's novel The Stranger from 1942. In Camus's story, the protagonist shoots an Arab on a beach, overwhelmed by his surroundings. The protagonist is summarily condemned for his honesty about his feelings. He is considered an outsider, or stranger, because he refuses to lie and doesn't play the game. Camus was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1957. To quell the rumpus of their debut tune, The Cure placed a sticker label that denied any racist connotations on the single's 1979 reissue on Fiction Records. Boys Don't Cry, the second single from The Cure in '79, was their breakthrough that led to the band's enduring international allegiance. Robert Smith wrote the lyrics for Boys Don't Cry, while the music was a collaboration by Smith, Dempsey, and Tolhurst. It's a song about a man that is struggling to regain a lost love, but he's torn between revealing his true feelings of sadness or regret, or stoically maintaining his male pride by holding in his emotions with a facade of indifference. I try to laugh about it, cover it all up with lies. I try to laugh about it, hiding the tears in my eyes, because boys don't cry.
I try to laugh about it, cover it all up with lies.
Robert Smith elaborated on the theme behind Boys Don't Cry, reflecting back on his upbringing, and I quote, "As an English boy at the time, you're encouraged not to show your emotion to any degree. And I couldn't help but show my emotions when I was younger. I never found it awkward showing my emotions. I couldn't really continue without showing my emotions. You'd have to be a pretty boring singer to do that. So I kind of made a big thing about it. I thought, well, it's part of my nature to rail against being told not to do something." End of quote. Classic Robert Smith. Smith and the rest of the formative Cure lineup came from the torn and frayed London suburb of Crawley, where boys were raised on the steely blue-collar principles that were embedded during the era that they grew up in. Young men were not allowed to be sensitive and emotional. You keep your head down, you work hard, and you take the punches as they come. Reared by parental figures who came from the tough as nails John Wayne generation. That's where I came from as well, as many of you probably too. When Smith and Tolhurst were growing up in Crawley, they were, in Tolhurst's words, like a cult, where people in the neighborhood knew about them, but not allowed to enter their circle of trust. The modus operandi of the Cure was born out of being identified as outsiders in a gray, desolate provincial community. Boys Don't Cry perhaps resonates even more today, deep in the 21st century with the modern challenges of traditional gender roles and social mores. Remarkably, the track still sounds just as fresh and vibrant as it did more than 40 years ago. You go listen to it, you'll know what I'm talking about. The timeless theme of the lyrics is certainly one reason the Boys Don't Cry holds up, but I also want to give special props to the song's irresistible groove. The music track for Boys Don't Cry was created by the trio of Smith, Tolhurst, and Dempsey. Michael Dempsey's short stint with The Cure was highlighted by his bass riff contribution on Boys Don't Cry. Other than Robert Smith, Dempsey has the distinction of being the only other member of The Cure to sing lead vocals, besides his replacement Simon Gallup on the unreleased demo titled Violin Song. Dempsey sang lead on the Cure's cover of the Jimi Hendrix rock standard Foxy Lady. That appears on the UK debut album Three Imaginary Boys.
I'm tired of waiting on my recess time. You've got to be on mine.
He made his last appearance with The Cure in October of 1979, I believe. Giving his account of Dempsey's exit from the band, Robert Smith indicated that the final straw came when he played Michael the demos for the next album, and Dempsey hated him. To quote Robert Smith, who said, Dempsey wanted us, The Cure, to be Ecstasy Part 2. And if anything, I wanted us to be the Banshees Part 2, so he left, end of quote. The desire to have a similar vibe to Susie and the Banshees was ignited during the 2 months that Robert played lead guitars with Susie Sue and the Banshees, undoubtedly preluding a new horizon for Smith's artistry. Dempsey was replaced by Simon Gallup, who has been the second most stable and irreplaceable musician for the evolution of The Cure's distinctive sound. In spite of a bizarre fistfight that he got into with Robert Smith at a bar in France, it was a drunken misunderstanding that actually led to Gallup's brief departure from The Cure from 82 to 84. But Robert and Simon have been tight ever since Gallup's return. Simon was Robert's best man at his wedding to Mary in 1988. The Cure, while being so absorbing and wondrously esoteric, have an uncanny gift for catchy melody. The catalog is rich with stimulating dark treasures, but they also have some of the catchiest alt-rock classics with melodically infectious songs like Love Cats, Close to Me,
It's close to me.
Hot, 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 Pictures of You, Friday I'm in Love, of course the aforementioned hits just like Heaven and Love Song. They're just brilliant with melody. Boys Don't Cry was the track that stamped the footprint of The Cure's captivating prominence with powerful, evocative lyrics and a whipping guitar riff that is the composition's can't get it out of your head hook line. It just enchants the soul. The song was dropped as a standalone single in the UK, included as the title track to the group's first compilation LP that became The Cure's debut American release in 1980. Boys Don't Cry was intended to expand The Cure's exposure outside of their native UK, and it most certainly did. Founder of Fiction Records, producer and band manager at the time, Chris Perry said about the song, and I quote, this was around the time that it came out, "We were advised not to bring out the song because of the fact that it was a pop single, and it would be much better if we brought out something that was less commercial but more artistically viable. Boys Don't Cry, 10:15, and Accuracy have always been my favorite songs out of all that initial lot. I'm glad I didn't make it in a way because then people would have been saying we shouldn't have put it out. And then they'd have turned around and said, you got to give another one just like that one." End of quote. He was adamant, though, saying, and I quote, "In a perfect world, Boys Don't Cry would have been a #1 hit. I'm grateful it wasn't because imagine having to rewrite that song again and again just to maintain the success." End of quote. Well, knowing Robert Smith, even if it had been a #1 hit, he would never have done what was expected of him. The beauty of Robert Smith. Years later, Robert actually re-recorded the vocals for the song's inclusion on the perfect Standing on a Beach compilation. Oh man, what a great collection. I remember buying Standing on a Beach when I had just discovered The Cure. I was like a preteen, probably 12. It was one of the first CDs I ever owned, and I could still remember just ripping the plastic off, clawing open the case, slamming that disc into my Sony Discman, and listening to just that mesmerizing and earth-shattering music over and over for months. It was a moment of pure bliss, heavy exhilaration, a joy that few young people will ever understand. Fact is, Boys Don't Cry has had a major impact on culture regardless of if it would have been a #1 hit or not. The 1999 film Boys Don't Cry starring Hilary Swank took its title from the song. Boys Don't Cry, of course, has been placed in numerous other movies, including The Wedding Singer, 50 First Dates, apparently Adam Sandler loves the song, Starter for 10, I Do, Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist, Friends with Benefits, where a cover version performed by Grant Lee Phillips is used in the soundtrack of The Picture.
Boys
and the movie Me and You. It's also been one of the most iconic pictures of Robert Smith and The Cure on posters or t-shirts for generations. I mean, this is one of the most iconic for sure. One of the things that Robert Smith said about the song in an interview that I read in high school that stuck with me all this time, he said, and I quote, "The pop songs like Boys Don't Cry are naive to the point of insanity. But considering the age I was and the fact that I had done nothing apart from go to school, no real life experience, everything was taken from books. Some of them are pretty good," end of quote. Pretty good? Robert Smith has always been the self-deprecating Pope of Mope. I mean, he certainly doesn't give himself enough credit. Even decades after its release as a single, Boys Don't Cry is the song that challenges, like I said, the men should never show their emotion macho BS that has resulted in years of therapy for people and a serious lack of emotional maturity for many of the male species.
I will tell you that I loved you if I thought that.
A subject that would later be tackled in the Joe Jackson song Real Men.
What's a man now? What's a man mean? Is he rough or is he...
In Boys Don't Cry, it's not reflected upon quite as boldly as Joe Jackson, but the message is similar. Robert Smith, he just masterfully sings the bridge. It's like one of the highlights for Boys Don't Cry, where he says, "Misjudged your limits, pushed you too far, took you for granted, I thought that you needed more.
Misjudged your limit, pushed you too far.
Now I would do most anything to get you back by my side, but I just keep on laughing, hiding the tears in my eyes, 'cause boys don't cry." Robert's not quite to the point where he can share his emotions in the song outwardly with the girl, but he gives us, as listeners, the hope that the next step for us isn't far behind. Robert sings this song with such conviction, with such bravado, this is almost at odds with the end result of not being vulnerable enough to break down in front of the object of his affection. A couple of final thoughts. Boys Don't Cry is Andrew Ridgeley of Wham's favorite record of all time. And for all you metalheads out there, Robert Smith and The Cure once played on a bill early on with the Police and the pre-Eurythmics band The Tourists and Motorhead. Robert and the boys played the opening night of this festival where they quite strangely dedicated their performance of Boys Don't Cry to the band Motorhead. How very masculine.
Boys don't cry.
Leave us a comment on this brilliant song and The Cure. What do you remember about this song? Share your memories. I want to hear those. Also, what is your favorite era of this band? If you dig this video, we do invite you to subscribe below so you never miss out. To get The Cure's classic music or this t-shirt, this iconic picture here, click on the Amazon links below. To get even more content, check us out on Patreon. Help us keep the music alive. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends. Stay safe out there.